Swinburne University of Technology.
I'm Professor Josie Arnold, and I'm talking today with Associate Professor from the Faculty of Health, Arts and Design, Kurt Seemann. And Kurt has a wonderful background in community, technology and design, and how these things come together. And today we're going to talk about his experience of doing himself and of supervising the design PhD and the value of the design PhD, because after all, Kurt, people could be out there designing things and making a fortune. Why bother to come and add to scholarship in this way?
Well, that's a great question, because look, it's probably best to think of a PhD as giving you advanced knowledge that puts you in the position of a market advantage. Right?
Yes.
In the market sense, there's a reason, and there's a personal growth value doing
and
a
scholarship
PhD.
grows too, doesn't it?
That's right. So let's talk about what is often the big question, because a PhD is a big chunk of your life, and it has a return on value question that we're going to ask. Right?
Terrific question.
So I tell my PhD students that, look, the reason why, if you're a designer or interested in design, and basically I'm saying, are you interested in anything to do with the way the world is made, and do you like how it is, and do you want to make it better? Right? Yes.
Gosh, it'd be hard to say no to that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Apart from the creative element of trying to research and produce understanding of how to make the world better in some area of the made world around us, the difference between not doing a PhD in design and doing a PhD in design is that you come out at the end with knowledge that is over the horizon for all your competitors. And you're on the horizon and you can see it, because you took yourself there to get new information together that gives you a market advantage over others. It's as simple as that. You can't get that if you're into the day-to-day grind of delivering a project for a client.
So you're stepping back and looking at a different way of looking at delivering a project for a client, if you like.
Yes, and look, and we approach design research as a project.
Yes.
And we really want the students to immerse themselves deeply in this and go right to the heart of understanding something new, something that's significant, and something that will give them an advantage when they graduate.
And it's this value of immersion, isn't it? That's a huge thing for probably all PhDs,
yes.
But certainly for a PhD in design and for a PhD in my area in writing, that you're immersing yourself in the project and learning so much yourself and then contributing that to scholarship.
Yeah, look, when you go into, one of the things that happens when you go deep into a topic for several years. It's not just tonight, you know.
And you work towards the forefront of it. You become the world expert.
That's right. In fact, the moment you graduate, you are at that point the world expert in your topic, because no one's walked in your shoes when you looked at this issue so deeply.
That's right.
So in the first 3 years as an early career researcher, we would encourage you to maximise the use of that new knowledge that no one else around you has except you have. And it's not just knowledge, it's understanding in a complex shifting world all the time. You've got an understanding of how the tide's moving, how the currents are swirling, and the probabilities of where the best success direction would be to take in any one moment.
So you can take that to industry, you can take that to a business of your own, you can take that to the academy and become an academic.
Yes.
Or you can advise government. That's
right. Now, let's contrast that with somebody who might be making a lot of money out of designing things, and they understandably say, well, I'm quite fine right now.
Yes.
Right? Well, you are at the moment, but you haven't had the time to immerse yourself in a knowledge advantage journey that the PhD student will have.
It's taking you, as you said, to the horizon.
Yeah, you're going to find out that there are going to be people outside who come through a PhD in design and know stuff that you haven't had time to look at.
Right.
And that will override you and make you redundant very quickly. So often we have people coming in to do PhDs in design. There are kind of two groups. We have the fresh designer, someone who's just started designing but wants to really get the jump on their competitors, and wants to go into getting advanced knowledge in something and really be the leading front on that point in design.
Yes.
And then you've got another group, people who've been designers for a while, and they want to not let themselves get stale. And they want to make sure that with all the changes in knowledge and fast tracking of technologies going around, that they're in that game and can come out with more advanced knowledge than they would have if they stayed where they were. So there's a market advantage in looking at a PhD as positioning you ahead of the game. There's also a personal value though, and this is probably the thing that most people talk about, because you're basically marrying someone.
Yeah. Scary, isn't it?
For 3 to 4 years,
yeah.
right? And or 6 years if you do it part-time, which is a great way of doing it, by the way. A part-time PhD, in my view, is a good PhD because it keeps one step in the real world where you can earn your money, and the other step in the discovery work to get a knowledge advantage. So
right.
part-time PhD is fine. You can jump and swap between the two.
That's right.
As you go through. And you may even get scholarships to sort of take time out and be
yes.
paid to do it.
And you can always put in early or extend into part-time later in your PhD.
That's right, that's right. And look, the other thing that happens is that you then get into a world where you have you'll have a panel of people who will seek to challenge you and look after you. They're all motivated by a very strong ethic. They need to see you graduate.
That's right.
Right? So everything is in their head is how can we get this person achieving their goals and graduating, because that makes us look good too. So
and you also
everyone's working positively for you.
You get into the world that also works for you of the refereed journal of scholarship that you might not... an example of this might be cars were always designed for men. But
yes.
if you took a bit of feminist standpoint theory, you could say, well, why aren't these cars comfortable for women? So you're linking scholarship and theory with actual design. I've just used that rather broad example. So you're learning something else too, aren't you?
Well, yeah, ultimately a PhD tries to teach you how to cut through the fray of ideology and groupthink trickery and get to the underlying reasons of why things are the way they are. And that gives you a real advantage when you design.
But you don't have to do it by yourself, is my point. There's a lot of academic literature that can help you.
Yes, and to cut through the fray, that's right. That whole process means you learn how to find out what the state of knowledge is around your interest.
Yes.
You learn to work with other PhD students who've got similar or juxtaposition next to it interests. And that becomes a real advantage to you when you graduate too, because you'll be graduating and others will be graduating in their areas. And that becomes like the next generation of leading thinkers in design.
That's right.
And you'll be part of that, you know. You won't be on the outside watching them, you're going to be one of them.
And that's what I have found with my writing students and my creative students, is that they're very sure in their area of practice, but they have to find their scholarly voice relating to that practice. Is that part of the design
Oh, I'm glad you
journey?
mentioned that. Look, that's true. All PhDs, you probably won't even notice it, but you'll start to use language that shows you're being much more careful and accurate about what you're saying. And that comes across to the hearer as confident, informed, a good bet by that person's knowledge.
Yes, yes. And you know these 20 leading thinkers, but you not only know them, you've contributed to their thinking and taking it forward into your project.
Yeah, yeah. Look, the collegiality is a big thing. I really like the approach where you have a supervisory panel rather than just one supervisor or two. You have a collegial environment that you interact with. You have real-world projects that you can sink your teeth into, and you learn the ways of structuring your thinking and collecting information to become an advanced knowledge person in your area of interest.
So the only unchanging thing in human society is change, and design is really about change, isn't it? So you're also always within that designing for a situation.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're always this, in the applied sense, in which we're on about a lot. We like the idea of designing for purpose, designing for a context, designing for impact, designing that we call it that's meaningful for people and yourself. That's the area that we're interested in. The idea of having a voice in the world. And in this mode of constant change, sometimes it's a bit like learning how to surf the waves. Learn how the tide works in that area of the beach that you're interested in, your topic area. And as you learn how the tide works, you're not so scared about the waves anymore. You learn how to surf it. You know the techniques, and you can find that it becomes a real advantage and a thrill to you rather than worrying about it.
And so there's a huge industry of design, and there are many positions and jobs for PhD students, or part-time people might have jobs already. Is this?
Well, this is really interesting. What's happened in the design world in research? It's around about, you can look it up. If you look up, say, service design in Google Trends, okay, which is it's just mapping how many times service design has been used as an expression.
Yes.
On the modern internet, okay. You'll see that service design goes up, and since about 2006 it started to really peak up. And the reason for that is that more and more the way designers think, the way they apply their form of rigour, the way they engage with trying to make a real impact on the world, often fits well where people accept the world is complex, and they need someone to surf it, they need someone to understand it, and give us ideas that can actually work for our business, our government organisation, our community group, our individuals who need help. So designers work in that space of creating things in the world, and if they have a PhD that teaches them how to surf complexity and has structures to provide a more informed design, you're going to be seen as being not only more valuable, but you will feel more valuable. You will feel like this is not just another widget I'm pushing out, just another graphic, which I have to do for bread and butter from time to time, but you'll have a bit more understanding of some of the big issues where you can get your teeth into it.
And do design students
value.
tend to bring those issues to you, or an issue to you, or do you tend to talk with them and develop it with them, or how do they go about their area, that bubble of their area of interest?
Well, yeah, that's a conversation. Well, more often than not, people come in with a sketchy view.
Yes.
You know, they'll come in with, I want to do a PhD because the idea of a PhD is good. And then we have to take them through a conversation of what do you have a passion about. That's really important because
you're going to live with it.
You're going to live with it. Doesn't matter which discipline you're in, design or writing or engineering or astrophysics. You have to have a passion to really want to understand something in it, because you're going to put a lot of yourself and a lot of your time in it, and there's going to be some scary moments. And
you're going to take it forward into the rest of your life. It doesn't just stop at the end.
No, no, it stays with you. And by the way, as a designer, you don't lose your practical skills. That's often a fear that just soon
I guess it would be, yes.
Yeah, I remember when I finished with my PhD, suddenly people thought I couldn't do anything practical because it was
in the head.
It was all in the head. But what they soon realised is that my practice was much more informed and advanced compared to others.
That's very interesting from my writing students' point of view, because all of them have said they feel they are better creative writers for having done the exegetical material, the other academic and scholarly research. So that, I think, is that feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the creative industries, designing, writing,
yes.
They are all trying to sort of put something in the world that didn't exist before, and that gives you can do that without doing a PhD. Okay?
Of course.
But if you join in to do a PhD, you are actually going into a journey to get new knowledge that other people in the day-to-day grind don't get a chance to get.
Yes.
And that gives you confidence as a person. You graduate with confidence. I know stuff. You graduate with wisdom, saying there's a lot now that I really don't know. I thought I just palmed it off.
But I know how to go
but
about
I know how to go
it.
about sussing it out if
Yes.
it's rigorous or not, and what I can do about it.
Yes. And I know the area of scholarship. I know that I can sit down with these leading thinkers or leading designers, and I could have a really intelligent and useful conversation with them.
Yeah. So look, the way you come in the design sense, you come to Swinburne's Centre for Design Innovation. If you look up our website, Centre for Design Innovation, cdiengage.com.au on the web, you'll see an entry to explore becoming a PhD graduate. Swinburne University's got application processes for becoming a PhD graduate. We then have a conversation with you. And look, one of the things that people don't realise is that doing a postgraduate research qualification, whether it's a research master's or a PhD, there's no tuition fee.
That's right. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
There's no tuition fee. You don't have to pay.
The government wants PhD people.
They want new knowledge. They want
right.
innovation. So the only thing that you have to look after is that you've got a living income.
Yes, and sometimes there are scholarships.
And sometimes there are scholarships.
They're difficult to get, but they're there.
They're there. So everyone who wants to do a research-based postgraduate qualification can do so knowing that they don't have a HECS debt.
And the major thing that I've discovered from the research committees is that you must have a good proposal. So
Yes.
that's what you're saying, the conversation. If
Yes.
someone comes to you and they say, I'd like to make a widget, and I'd like, because it'll do all these terrific things for the community, for technology and for design, and that's it. That's 15 words.
Yes. Well, look, this is a really good point that you make because our initial conversation is all about finding out what I call, is it a PhD?
Yes, is there enough in it?
Is there enough in it? And the only way for you to know as a student is to talk to experienced scholars like us and others who are in the PhD game and to say, look, I know this field and what you're talking about, if you look at these angles, you could probably find a PhD in that because it's significant. It hasn't been well articulated yet. And we need someone to look at it because the impact is quite credible.
So you're saying already that one of the things you'll do in your proposal is say there's a gap in knowledge,
yes.
There's a gap in design,
yes.
and in scholarly knowledge about it.
Yes, and there's a key question that needs to be asked.
Key questions or question that needs to be asked. And then you have to write quite a short essay, perhaps of 3,000 words, about what you think you're going to do. And to do that, it's very helpful to know about Google Scholar.
Yes, yes, that's right. So we'll help you with that proposal.
That's right.
You won't be doing it on your own.
No.
So you come in and we help build it up. And if you're happy with where you're going to go with your journey, knowing that you'll probably have some ebbs and changes as you go through the 3 years. Which is fine. Yeah.
And you're allowed to change as you go. You don't have to stick with the original outline.
That's right. So if you recognise that, you put in a proposal, and there are various avenues. A lot of designers don't come from a classical bachelor's degree with honours.
That's right. We have that too. They come from industry, so they have to be recognised. They have to make an argument that it's the same as having done an honours degree. Yes,
and even if that's a question in your head, we have a pathway through a Masters by Research, which is 2 years, but in the 1 year point, if your first year was really confident,
we can upgrade to a PhD.
We can then upgrade you to a PhD because that first year of the Research Masters would be equivalent of doing an honours.
Yes.
And then that lets you continue on without losing any traction in the program of your PhD. So you can start, there's no prerequisites to start a Research Masters. When you get to the first year and you do a confirmation, we call that a confirmation where we check that everything's okay, we can then, on your advice, make an application to go through and finish with a PhD, with a doctorate.
Is there a financial reason to do a PhD, or would you get a better outcome financially, do you think, or do you know?
That's varies. Like increasingly overseas, let's work from the outside in, financial return is an economics question, okay? So from the financial return, my understanding of this field is that if you have the knowledge advantage, you have an innovation advantage.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you push, not that you've got a PhD so much, I'm a doctor, you push, I know this stuff really well, more than anyone else, and I've got the knowledge to make it succeed for you. That's the advantage you have. That helps you win a leadership position.
Yes.
In a company, in a government department, in an organisation. Most people don't want to hear the title of their degree. They want to know what's the knowledge advantage you've got with your PhD.
And they don't want you just to do, my PhD is about. They want you to do, my PhD is about, and this is good for you because it has this knowledge advantage.
That's right. And so I'm thinking that we should emphasise that when it comes to the market. Now, the economy is moving faster and faster down the road of innovation. All disciplines are asked now to be on the first clean beachfront of knowledge in some way. Why? Because while everyone else is producing services and producing goods and producing ideas, the real advantage comes with people who have informed knowledge of an idea that has success in working. Now, this is a competition. So you're in competition now with a person who's got really good ideas that look like they can succeed, and you're in competition with a person who's just got ideas, maybe. So, strangely, experience is not enough. Experience with informed ideas puts you ahead.
That's right.
And that's what the PhD does.
Well, Kurt, you've convinced me about the value of a PhD, and I'm sure that you've convinced many of our prospective design PhD students, and I think this fits very well into the whole idea of the contemporary PhD, of looking at things that are in the world today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Josie.
This has been a Swinburne production.